I'm hoping that you can all see me. Welcome, and thanks very much for choosing to attend my presentation. I'm just going to share my screen with you now. Please let me know in the chat box if you can see it, and just give me a heads up that you can see it, and also that you can hear me, please. So I'm going to start the presentation as from now. Welcome to all you remote interpreters out there. I'm not talking to you from outer space. I'm actually based in Manchester, but with a virtual background. And that's great. Thanks very much from Milada and Anna Leticia for letting me know that they can see and hear me. Okay, so here we go, negotiating terms and conditions for remote interpreting. Some information about me. Basically, I'm a chartered linguist. Background is law, so I currently work as a lawyer linguist. Nice picture of me there. Superwoman, that's my, alter ego, if you like. I have a company here in Manchester, a niche market company, which is called Avocat. Those of you who understand French will know it means woman lawyer, so I thought it was really appropriate. And I'm a member of some committees, you can see there which ones, and I do a lot of mentoring. So if anybody actually is interested in getting some help, drafting your terms and conditions for your business and so on, or letting me have a look at your existing ones, please do contact me. My contact details at the end of the slides. So terms and conditions for remote interpreting, and we now have a poll. So I'm going to launch this poll with these two questions in it. So in terms of your general business, here's the question: have you got terms and conditions for your business generally? Yes or no, simple answer. So please start voting.
Sue, I don't think we can see the poll. I think maybe if you come out of the screen share, we'll be able to see it that way.
Okay. Right. Sorry, it's not letting me do anything here.
Okay, I'm just running the poll now. Here we go.
Okay, got it. So specific terms and general terms. Are you running it for me, Jonathan?
Yes, I've only got 2 votes though, so.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why. Maybe we're having some difficulty with that. Okay,
well, not to worry. All right, well, we'll go back to the presentation. People are saying they can't see it. Never mind. You can put something in the chat box if you want. Just to let me know, do you have terms and conditions generally for your business? Do you have terms and conditions specifically for remote interpreting? And then I'll come back to that at the end of the presentation. So what actually is remote interpreting? Just to make sure that we're all on the same page here, it's where the interpreter does not have a direct view of participants because they receive input via a single or via several screens or just via audio, perhaps just on the telephone, whether or not they're on the site. That sounds a bit strange if we're talking about remote interpreting, but all is going to be revealed in a minute. Here's some examples of interpreters working remotely. You may be, of course, working from home, very common these days, for obvious reasons. You may be working in a communal hub. You may actually be working remotely on site somewhere at an event, for example, but you're interpreting in the room next door to the event where the actual event is happening. And just to give you an example of that, I interpreted in court, but not actually in the courtroom. The judge and the parties were in the courtroom, and they actually put me, the interpreter, in a side room. And that was, you know, when COVID was really rife and big health and safety issues. So really the name of the game is, it's screen to screen, isn't it? You know, you have no direct view, you know, in-person view. So this talk is about spoken language and sign language interpreters also working remotely where they do not have a direct view of the participants and they are not co-located with the participants. So why do interpreters need terms and conditions? Because we're language professionals. We're not just translators and interpreters. We're business owners, and terms and conditions minimize the possibility of legal disputes. Having terms and conditions may, or certainly should, reassure some of our clients. Having terms and conditions creates a professional image. And the reason I said, by the way, some of our clients is because some clients may not be particularly bothered at the kind of lower end of the market about us having our own terms and conditions, but the sort of better clients, if you like, will be reassured by that. Not having terms and conditions can cost you more than if we'd had them in the first place, you know. So if you've got a kind of very sloppy set of terms and conditions that don't really cover what you know you're about to do, and then something goes wrong and all the rest of it, then you're really going to wish that you'd negotiated properly at the beginning. So whose terms and conditions apply? Several possibilities here. Just the clients, just the language professionals, that's our own. What about a mix of the clients and the language professionals? That's possible as well. We can kind of amalgamate them. And possibly the language professional, you and I, have adopted our professional organizations' terms and conditions. For example, those of the Chartered Institute of Linguists. We've had a look at them. You can find them on the Chartered Institute of Linguists website, and we've basically adapted them and adopted them to use, you know, in our own businesses. That's quite an easy way, actually, of getting at least a basic set of terms and conditions to start with. Obviously, if you do adopt those of your professional organization and you don't amend them in any sort of way, and you've put them on your website and so on, you should acknowledge the source. You know, you shouldn't really be passing them off as your own. What about written terms and conditions compared with just having oral terms and conditions? Written terms and conditions are always best. They can be used to back up any orally agreed terms and conditions as soon as possible. You know, maybe you've just negotiated something in person, somewhere at an event or on the phone, and you've made careful notes, hopefully, of what's been agreed, and then you get an email over ASAP setting out what has been agreed. And of course, if you've got terms and conditions in writing, these can be used as evidence in the case of future disputes. And professional indemnity insurers, and I'm hoping here that you all do have professional indemnity insurance, and lawyers may require, almost certainly will require, written evidence. So basically your written terms and conditions provide certainty. What about oral terms and conditions if that's all you've got? Are they legally enforceable? Well, yes, they are, but of course they may be difficult to remember later. You know, I agreed a set of oral terms and conditions on the phone about 2 hours ago about a job for Monday, a remote interpreting job for Monday, and made bullet point notes as I was talking. Would I remember them if I don't put them in an email, you know, sometime later this afternoon? No, probably not, if we're talking about next week or 2 weeks hence or whatever. So anything that was agreed maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, forget it. You know, if it's not in writing, it's gone. And of course, the issue about proof, if there is a dispute later on, if all you've got is he said, she said sort of thing, very difficult. So what's the real issue for us in 2021? Well, obviously the pandemic has accelerated remote interpreting, but before we really, together with our clients, have had a chance to develop and then negotiate new terms and conditions for this new world that we find ourselves in. We're obviously still very much on a learning curve here. In terms of negotiating, some words about this. Have a look at these two definitions. The first one is from the Oxford English Dictionary, and it says that negotiating is a discussion aimed at reaching an agreement. The www.business.com definition says a bargaining process between two or more people, each with their own aims, needs, and viewpoints, seeking to discover a common ground. And I think that second definition is actually really much more appropriate, because I think it includes all the elements of negotiating. But have a look at this. This is one of my favorite slides. Negotiation is the art of letting the other side have it your way. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, that, but so when should we be negotiating our terms and conditions? Well, in order to minimize any potential friction with the client, we should be negotiating before accepting the job offer, not when we're midway through the job. You know, when things start to unravel, maybe there's a dispute about the slides that the speaker's using or something, we didn't know they were going to use them. You know, all this kind of thing, which materials are going to be used, you know, which speakers are going to be speaking and so on. It's all got to be agreed up front. So we really want to be in a position where we've got our own sets of terms and conditions, but we are working clearly in partnership with our clients, and all of these elements of partnership are valuable: trust, support, collaboration, cooperation, and mutual advice giving. You know, nothing to stop us advising clients, well, the print on the slides is way too small, not acceptable. Please, can you make sure your end client does something about it before the event starts? So being transparent and open creates trust, which is what it's all about. Initial remote interpreting assignment considerations could be, for example, checking with the event organizers whether or not the event is actually appropriate in the first place for face-to-face or remote interpreting. For example, is a remote interpreting assignment where the participants are distressed, maybe very vulnerable people, people with mental health issues? You know, is that really going to be viable? Is it going to work? I've sat through several court hearings, remote court hearings now, where witnesses have been sitting crying, you know, on the screen in front of me. Sometimes the hearing has had to be adjourned for people to try to, you know, calm down and so on. Very, very distressing, hardly appropriate, really, you know, for people who are about to be sectioned, people who are about to lose their children, this sort of thing. So in terms of hard and fast terms and conditions, time, anything to do with time, you've really got to get this sorted out in advance. You know, what you're actually being paid for. So you need to negotiate the start and the finish times, and also keep a close eye on the actual start and finish times worked, because they may well differ from those that have been booked. You may actually, you know, log in, say 30 minutes in advance or something like that, and work an hour later because of tech problems, and you want to be paid for, you know, the time you've worked. Break times due to cognitive overload. I think we all know that, all of us remote interpreters by now, and screen fatigue. You know, maybe set up terms of maximum 30 minutes for simultaneous, 50 minutes for consecutive. Colleagues all have different time limits and competences and capabilities. But you know, you've got to negotiate what suits you, and you need to find out, well, how many interpreters are needed for this job. And the really significant question here is how many interpreters have actually been booked, because maybe not enough have been booked. There's a lot of agencies and clients these days just asking one sole interpreter to work, you know, often for an hour or longer on screen on their own. Beware the colleagues who I call the no breaks needed bad interpreters. Oh, I don't need a break, don't worry about me, I can keep going, you know, and they you know, have this kind of bravado, which really, you know, is not very healthy. And what they're trying to do is show up their partner interpreters sometimes. Oh, well, if they were a good interpreter, they wouldn't need a break, sort of thing. And it's just ridiculous, it's rubbish. So general assignment, health conditions. I was hoping not to have to show this sort of slide, but COVID does seem to still be with us to a certain extent in certain parts of the country anyway. So if you are working remotely on site, you need to check all of these sort of terms about what are the social distancing arrangements, who's providing personal protective equipment, such as gel, masks, and so on. What kind of structural protection have you, the interpreter, got? You know, is there some kind of plexiglass screen around you? How many interpreters might be working in very close proximity in the same booth? And obviously, going now to our codes of conduct, the right of the interpreter to withdraw if reasonable. You always do have that right. You know, for example, you feel that your health and safety are being compromised in any way. Check out what sort of platforms are going to be used on your particular event. You might have questions like, can I see my booth partner? And yes, with certain platforms such as these, GreenTerp, RSIX, Cabisco, and obviously also if you're interpreting, as some of us do from time to time, on WhatsApp video link. If you've got a situation where there's more than one of you in a booth and you're working remotely, which kind of platforms will provide for this? Interpretify, Kudo, Quaqua, you know, and again, you need to be asking these very specific questions up front about which platform am I going to be using. What about protocol for us when we want to notify any issues? You know, we've got perhaps a problem with the audio, a problem with the visuals. How do we actually notify it? We have been, a lot of us, using chat boxes, but they're quite dangerous actually, you know, because it's so easy to inadvertently message everybody. You know, you might send a message to the effect of, oh, this speaker is dragging on, or something like that. You know, it's people have done it. Maybe you organize in advance a situation where, or a setup where you can text each other, or send messages on WhatsApp, whatever it is. And you want to check what are the intercommunication details, not just between interpreters, but between interpreters and the technicians and the moderator. I was working on some remote interpreting this week, and I was working on a platform called Ribe, and we were able to put in messages actually on the platform in a little kind of message box, so that the technicians and the moderator could see, you know, where we were saying, you know, the slide needs to be enlarged or something like that. So yes, obviously needing all this information about platforms, which ones. Some platforms actually require training certificates to have been obtained up front by the interpreters, so make sure you've got one. For example, Interprify has a lot of work for remote interpreters, but only if you've done their training up front. What about any other equipment that they particularly specify that they want you to use? Maybe a tablet of a certain kind, or a certain, set of headphones. See what their requirements are, if any. Obviously, you need to know the usual about subject matter of the assignment. So obviously, you want to know which sort of materials you're going to be provided with, such as PowerPoints, any glossaries, and so on. And when you're actually going to get these, you really want to put a date on it, and make it as early as possible, because you won't get it, unfortunately, when you want it. But, the earlier you try and get it, the more likely you are to have time to prepare. And this is the kind of nightmare situation for interpreters, where you've got a speaker who goes a bit off-piste, and during the event, they're suddenly starting to refer to documents that you have not been provided with up front. So contact details for that sort of scenario. Who can you contact to say, for goodness sake, get me this document fast somehow or other, because I haven't been provided with it. Or, maybe a situation where, as has happened to me a few weeks ago, where I was interpreting a business event, and we had all the scripts up front, all the speeches, and then suddenly two of the speakers in the meeting went seriously off-piste and went completely off the script. And, I had to notify the moderator that I did not have the script for where they were going. Onboarding instructions, really important, so that you can get in really quickly. Maybe you may require assistance to log in on occasion. It's not unknown for people to sort of panic or whatever and not be able to get in, or, there's some kind of technical problem, they get in and then they lose the connection and they can't get in again, and this sort of thing. Speakers, really, we want to be making sure that they also have been issued with some kind of instructions around wearing headphones with inbuilt microphones, that they're in noise-free backgrounds. I've just recently done a job with a speaker in a laboratory, by the looks of it, with her mobile phone next to her going off twice during a 1-hour session, and with her colleagues in the background chatting and also taking and receiving phone calls. It was totally unacceptable. We want non-distracting backgrounds. As far as speakers are concerned, no sort of vivid colors or wavy patterns. We certainly don't want them in or on any sort of transport, such as moving cars. And we want them to know that, it might help if they're on a Zoom connection to switch off their camera if necessary. So please, Mr. Speaker or Madam Speaker, use forward-facing lights, display your name and role, if possible. That's really helpful to us, that you're the chairman or you're the accountant or whatever. Don't rustle papers, don't drink, don't eat if you're not muted, and certainly don't speak if you're not muted, because, this can cause us serious issues as interpreters. How much or how little do we interpret when we're not sure if we should be interpreting at all? And obviously this serious issue about sticking to the speech that the script that has been circulated in advance to the interpreter. Tech terms and conditions, again, robust internet connections, high-speed wired cable connections or Wi-Fi boosters. Obviously, again, this issue, can't stress it enough, about having contingency tech contact details in case of connection issues, inbuilt microphones. are not always designed for high quality audio, can pick up sounds in the speaker's room, such as even a clock ticking. So that can be really distracting to an interpreter. Again, this issue about poor internet connections and instructions hopefully have been given to all and sundry, including us interpreters. Does the client have a set of instructions for what do we do if things go wrong? Here's some fairly obvious basic ones. Unplug, plug router in again. If you've got time, contact your internet supplier. Maybe if you're working with a partner, one of you could, I suppose, but generally we don't even have time to hardly breathe. Using backup internet connections, more and more of us are getting a second line installed. Using backup laptops, we're making sure we've got alternative equipment very close to hand. Even mobile, phone connections, strong mobile phone connections, and mobile tethering with strong passwords, obviously, in place. So location of the interpreter, obviously you've got to be somewhere private, particularly where working from home, from a confidentiality point of view. Which neighbours may be overhearing you if you've left the window open, or family members for that matter. We should also be in noise and echo-free backgrounds, using touchscreen tablets. Our backgrounds should also be obviously clean, tidy, child, husband, wife, partner, pet-free. One of my colleague interpreters was telling me about interpreting actually for a speaker who had a parrot in his background, and the parrot was actually mimicking what the interpreter was interpreting. She hadn't come across that one before. And a neutral professional background, nothing that may convey, a preference for, I don't know, a political party or a particular cause of action or something like that. Equipment used, this is a big issue as regards our terms and conditions, who's providing it. If we, the interpreter, are providing the equipment for an event, it really is a good idea for us to have a separate contract just about the provision of the equipment. And that will contain terms as to, is the equipment ISO compliant, international standards organizations, compliant, what our insurance is for this equipment, that it's fully charged up, that we've run all kind of updates, that it's been properly installed, and so on. And the provision of equipment is more and more common, by the way, for events whereby organisers are asking interpreters to provide the full package, not just the interpreting, but also equipment. So, get yourself some good headphones and all the rest of it. Tech trials, these are really important, should be arranged a few days before the event. But again, just before the event, everybody should be really logging in at least 30 minutes in advance, checking that the client understands the tech issues, for example, how to assign the interpreter, and use of breakout rooms, this kind of things. All of this can go very badly wrong. Organisers and technicians, do they understand the languages that we speak? Can we all converse, communicate? And making sure that all of the speakers in a big event attend all of the trial, so that everybody's had the same kind of training. Get tech savvy, do some free tech, CPD. I'm very in favor of this organization, Tech for Word. These are great colleagues who do put on some really good free CPD, for us need to know tech interpreters. So codes of conduct, we should always be acting in accordance with those of our professional organizations, wherever it's IEC, the Conference Interpreters Association, maybe if you're a Portuguese interpreter, you're APTRAD, or you're an interpreter or of whatever type, based in the UK and also abroad, you might just by way of example, be a member of a CIL, Chartered Institute of Linguists. And bear in mind that we may also have to respect our clients' codes of conduct too. So confidentiality where working from home, obviously keeping it buttoned. And some interesting questions here for you, and I'd be really interested to hear in the chat later. Do you think we should have the right to ask who else is in the speaker's background? This is more for the kind of one-to-one kind of Zoom type interpreting. Before we commence interpreting, when it's not been made known to us, but you can hear somebody else coughing, but you can't see them, that kind of thing. And where we become aware of somebody entering into the speaker's background after the interpreting has commenced, but again, we can't see them. Payment, obviously interpreting is the intellectual property of the interpreter. If the client wants to record our voice, we want their written consent. We want to be notified upfront of the reason for the recording. Is it for their company internal training use, for example, or are they going to use it externally for clients? We need to negotiate a good fee for the recording, in addition to the fees that we're negotiating to actually interpret. Are we going to negotiate a flat fee or per minute or whatever, or a percentage fee? Colleagues have different views on that. What about the future use of our voice? We should be thinking about negotiating royalties. And bearing in mind, talking about confidentiality and retention of data and so on, GDPR, data controller and data processor considerations that exist about retaining personal information. So that applies not only to that we hold, but those that clients, agents and so on might hold when they use our intellectual property. So time is definitely money. We've mentioned this already about making sure you get paid for the time you've actually worked, not just the time that was booked. Maybe there was a major power cut on the day and everybody stopped working for an hour and then got going again. Any additional time involved, maybe because the event has taken longer, because the client's voice was very muffled, the sound was distorted, and there was a lot of stopping and starting. Bear in mind that interpreters working on the same assignment may well be working in different locations, so charging different rates, because say in the US and the UK, one colleague may be working the day and daytime and the other one is working in the evening. Different jurisdictions, this is an issue, very serious issue in the event of disputes. The example here is a bit complicated, but you'll get the gist. Interpreter A is working in Portugal, interpreter B is working in the UK. The event that they're working at is actually taking place in the US, but the client who's booked them is based in Germany. So that could be actually quite a jurisdictional nightmare if it all goes wrong. What about liability for tech problems, especially where there's loss of internet connection, sound, video, and so on? There's more and more trend towards clients trying to make interpreters liable for all of these issues. So you need to really, really read the small print if you're looking at their terms and conditions. You may be able to negotiate a clause that interpreting will be suspended until maybe the sound or the visual quality improves, because you can only do what you can do. So that's it, and thanks for your attention. And here's my contact details. I'd be delighted to hear from you, and over to you for any questions that you might have. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to look at the chat. Amy's asked, can we get a copy of the slides? Absolutely, yes. very welcome. You can write to me. My contact details were on that last, well, one of the penultimate slides, but you can find me on LinkedIn. You can look at my website and contact me that way as well. Milada is saying, I draft terms and conditions, but I never really have to email them to my clients. Not sure why not. A few of you are saying, no, you don't have any terms and conditions. That would fit in generally with my experience of colleagues not having their own terms and conditions, which is really quite worrying, I think. You know, it's really much better idea to have some properly drafted terms and conditions. Natalie Wilson is saying, I don't have any at the moment, but I'm considering drafting them. Mitsu is saying, I haven't got any for remote interpreting. You're not alone, because so many colleagues are still on this learning curve. Sandra's saying she's got general terms and conditions, and Jochen as well. And another Sandra is saying for remote interpreting, no. Milada is saying when she emails her client about her quote, her rates, she includes a few points about cancellation fees, and that is really important because events can get cancelled, as we all know. I've got a question, says Martina, about terms and conditions. Are they useful just for interpreters or also for translators working with private individuals and agencies? Definitely both. And I would strongly recommend that you have separate sets of terms and conditions for your translation work, and again for your interpreting work, and separate ones again if the work or the job is remote interpreting. And then I've got another question here from Salima. I had an email offering me an interpreting job. I'd like to know more about the assignment before accepting, as I'm not a fan of acronyms, but I had no luck trying to get the supporting document, I think, for the meeting. I don't feel I can take the job if I do not get this. Can I request this even if I have not accepted the job yet? I think if I've understood you properly, it's really a no to accept any job if you're not, 100% satisfied that you've got all the terms and conditions that you want sorted. Frankly, otherwise it's just too dangerous. I often find that if the agency or direct clients are not very happy to assist at the outset, it's probably not going to get any better. If it's all too much trouble for them to provide you with what you're asking for, I've just recently tried to negotiate a job with a company who sent me a one-line job offer for some remote interpreting. Was I free on Monday, basically, and something to do with filming, and no idea as to the subject matter of the event, the timing on Monday, really basic stuff like that. Nothing about their cancellation policy. So I just basically thought it doesn't convey a very good impression to me, actually, if that's how they work. And can I put the contact details back again? Says Milada. I'll try. Let's see. No, it's not. I don't know why it's not going back, but I can put my email address in the chat, so you can use that. to contact me. Okay, can people see that now? Yeah, and then Mitsuku is saying, do you charge for recording for interpreters' parts if they are external? I think you mean if it's for external use, yes. Anytime when my voice has been used, I would charge for it. If it's for external use, you know, outside of the company, I'd want to know who's using it and for what purpose. Lots of people mentioning cancellation terms, very important. RSI, separate terms and conditions, yeah, really important. Nadia is saying she's not an interpreter, but she does translation and teaching and organizes international events and so on. Does appreciate the points that I've covered, especially factoring in time to sort out technical issues. Okay. Cynthia is saying, how often do you reject jobs because the client does not agree with your terms and conditions? Quite often, actually, you know, again, it's right at the outset, if, you know, I'm just not getting agreement and, you know, I try very politely to negotiate and so on, and I'm just not getting anywhere, you know, it's probably not going to get any better. So I'm better out of it, really. Some clients just don't want the hassle. They'll just go to the next interpreter who'll just sign up and agree to anything. And then we've got Amy saying, I've got terms and conditions that I can supply on request. I'm a BSL, British Sign Language interpreter, so ours might be slightly different. I'm sure they are, but basic principles are the same, Amy. I also have a signature on my emails, which states cancellation policy, payment terms, and audio / visual recording. I recommend this for emails, as then the supplier is aware. That's really probably very useful. Or you could, in your email signature, put a link to your website where you've got that sort of information. The only problem with doing that, though, I think, is if it's couched in very general terms, Amy, it might put off some possible job suppliers. You know, I tend to very much give out individual rates to, you know, the various work suppliers and clients, because the job assignments that I'm offered are often so very different, you know, and I don't want to kind of be off-putting. You know, it's not the case that one set of rates fits everything. Oh, can't see my email address. Okay, let's see if I can put it in again. I'll put in everyone. Okay, see if that will work. There we go. Tell me if you can see my email address now. There. Can everybody see that? You should be able to. Yeah, great. That's good. Okay, well, I think that is, oh yes, somebody's just asking Ivana, what did you do in that situation you mentioned where people chatted in the lab, and what did your colleague do in the parrot case? My situation to do with the lab, I actually notified the agency who'd booked me afterwards, and I think my colleague in the parrot case also notified her client actually at the time about what was happening. I did my best to notify the tech people and the moderator in my laboratory case, you know, in the chat, just saying, you know, can't hear. You know, you have to bear in mind when you're interpreting, it's really difficult to listen to the speaker, interpret simultaneously, keep going, and in a way you're having problems to put, you know, to even draft a couple of words in a message box that makes some kind of sense, you know, but you can do the best you can and just put in can't see, can't hear, you know, that kind of thing. Or as I've suggested earlier, if it's so bad, rely on your, you know, I'm going to have to suspend interpreting provision. Hopefully it won't come to that, but anything you put in writing is really useful evidence for afterwards. You know, if there's any criticism of your report, of your performance, then, you know, at least you've you know, made it known as best you could at the time, and you make it known immediately afterwards as well to the client in a phone call and an email. So I'll just check the Q&A. That's it, I think. So in the absence of any more questions, comments, we've now run out of time. So I'm going to end it here. So do contact me, anybody who would like help with terms and conditions, and best of luck to you all. Have a great weekend. Thanks for attending. Bye-bye.